Greetings, dear audience. This is Self Mastery 101, and today I am going to give a lesson on 1 Kings 21. The question is, was Jezebel really as evil as she has been depicted through humans? Or was she being a wife and supporting her husband? And I'm going to read the First Kings, and then we're going to go over a king's responsibilities, a wife's responsibility, a king and a husband's responsibilities, a queen and a wife's responsibilities. And we're going to start off first with the opening prayer. Our God, the Father Almighty, the creator of heaven and earth, we thank you for delivering this great revelation of truth. We ask you for guidance on receiving and understanding your message. We ask you for protection from opposing spirits to block them from interfering with your radio communication with us. We ask you to remove them from our chat room so we can humbly receive your grace with open arms. In the name of the Lord, Lord, hear our prayer. Amen. So now we're going to get to the nitty-gritty. How many people have heard people compare Jezebel to something really evil and controlling and manipulative? I know I have. The terms that they use are the Jezebel spirit. The Jezebel spirit is controlling. The spirit of Jezebel. Or the person, so-and-so is a Jezebel. Like labeling. So, the king, at the end of the day, the king was the one who was authorized to make any kind of decision on the kingdom. And the question is, why was King Ahab not as ridiculed as Jezebel? It seems that Jezebel, Queen Jezebel, the queen of Phoenicia, was the scapegoat for Ahab, and God even had it in the Bible that Ahab, his children and everything in his kingdom that was created by him, including his wife, would be destroyed, but God still gave him grace because he became humbled after his punishment from the Lord and his message. So now, this is 1 Kings chapter 21. After these things, an incident took place concerning a vineyard that belonged to Naboth, the Jezreelite. It was in Jezreel, next to the palace of Ahab, the king of Samaria. Ahab said to Naboth, "Give me your vineyard for me to use as a vegetable garden, for it is near my house. Then I will give you a better vineyard to replace it. Or, if you prefer, I will give you its value in money." But Naboth said to Ahab, "It is unthinkable from Jehovah's standpoint for me to give you the inheritance of my forefathers." So Ahab came into his house sullen and dejected over the answer that Naboth gave the Jezreelite had given him when he said, "I will not give you the inheritance of my forefathers." Then he lay down on his bed, kept his face turned away, and refused to eat. His wife, Jezebel, came to him and asked, "Why are you so sad that you refuse to eat?" He replied to her, "Because I said to Naboth, the Jezreelite, 'Give me your vineyard for money,' or if you prefer, let me give you another vineyard to replace it." But he said, I will not give you my vineyard. His wife Jezebel said to him, are you not the one ruling as king over Israel? Get up, eat something, and let your heart be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters to the elders and the nobles who lived in Naboth's city. She wrote in the letters, proclaim a fast, and have Naboth sit at the head of the people, and have two good-for-nothing men sit in front of him and testify against him, saying, you have cursed God and the king. Then bring him out and stone him to death. So the men of his city, the elders, and the nobles who lived in his city did just what was written in the letters that Jezebel sent to them. They proclaimed a fast and had Naboth sit at the head of the people. Then two of the good-for-nothing men came in and sat down in front of him and began to testify Naboth in front of the people, saying, Naboth has cursed God and the king. After that, they brought him to the outskirts of the city and stoned him to death. They now sent a word to Jezebel, saying, Naboth has been stoned to death. As soon as Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned to death, she said to Ahab, get up, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth and Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money, for Naboth is no longer alive, he is dead. As soon as Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, Ahab got up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite, to take possession of it. But Jehovah's word came to Elijah. So Elijah was the prophet, the Tishbite, saying, get up, go down to meet Ahab, the king of Israel, who is in Samaria. There he is in the vineyard of Naboth, where he had gone to take possession of it. You must tell him, this is what Jehovah says. Have you murdered a man and also taken his property? Then say to him, this is what Jehovah says. In the place where the dogs licked up the blood of Naboth, the dogs will lick up your own blood. Ahab said to Elijah, so you have found me, O my enemy. He replied, I have found you, because you are determined to do what is bad in the eyes of Jehovah. Here I am bringing calamity upon you, and I will make a clean sweep after you, and will annihilate from Ahab every male, including the helpless and weak in Israel. And I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha, the son of Ahijah. For you have provoked my anger, and have caused Israel to sin. Also concerning Jezebel, Jehovah has said, the dogs will eat up Jezebel in the plot of the land of Jezreel. Anyone belonging to Ahab who dies in the city, the dogs will eat up, and anyone who dies in the field, the birds of the heaven will eat up. Indeed, there has never been anyone like Ahab, who was so determined to do what was bad in the eyes of Jehovah, egged on by his wife Jezebel. He acted in the most detestable way by going after the disgusting idols, just as all the Amorites had done, whom Jehovah drove out from before the Israelites. As soon as Ahab heard these words, he ripped his garments apart and put sackcloth on his body, and he went on a fast and kept lying down in the sackcloth and walking despondently. Jehovah's word then came to Elijah the Tishbite. Have you seen how Ahab has humbled himself on my account, because he has humbled himself before me? I will not bring the calamity down during his lifetime. I will bring the calamity upon his house in the days of his son. So now, with that chapter alone, there was there was really nothing in there that indicated about Jezebel truly ruling. God was talking about Jezebel influencing her husband. However, her husband, Jezebel's husband, Ahab, influenced her. He's the one that started it. He coveted his neighbor's property. His neighbor refused and said, I don't want to sell. He came home not eating. And for those that are married, how many people are married? You can raise your hand or say aye through the computer. If your spouse is coming home and upset or sulking about something, and what's the first thing you're going to ask? Well, what's going on with you? Because the whole atmosphere is weird, especially when you're not participating in family duties. Ahab wasn't even eating. He got so depressed and was very despondent. You ask your spouse what's going on. Your spouse tells you about something that's going on. You're wanting your spouse to feel better, and you're also coming up to a conclusion saying, well, if it's yours, go get it. She said, well, aren't you the king? Go get the land. Like, what are you doing? It's ultimately back then, it was ultimately the king who was authorized to make the decisions. Jezebel signed in Ahab's name. Ahab did not once even try to stop her for sending out those letters, or even stop her for carrying out taking the vineyard. Because he was being so greedy, he was all for it. And he even went down to the vineyard. He was happy. He was happy until the prophet Elijah came to him. Elijah did not go to Jezebel. Elijah went to the king because the king is ultimately responsible. He was the king of Israel. He's the one that knew the 10 commandments. He received the 10 commandments and knew. And he broke almost every commandment. And he also was the one who married Jezebel, who had different gods than Ahab's God. And that was another problem. So he decided to mix his spirituality with his wife's spirituality, and he was accommodating his wife. However, as a king and a ruler, it's not about ruling a world based off of one's personal beliefs. Ruling a country, it has to be based on the good of others in the land, the best interest of others. That particular land already had a set of rules that was passed down from God to Moses at Sinai. And it was passed from king to king. All of the children of Israel knew. And the children of Israel, if you can recall Moses, when he did go to Sinai to get the 10 commandments, they got impatient and they asked his brother Aaron, can we make a golden calf? And God already knew. He knows all human fallibilities. He knows what we are capable of. And rules are always created based off human fallibility. Have you ever been to a store and there were a set of rules, and then a human walks in and commits commits an offense that was not placed on those rules, and then the next time you come into that store, that set of rules was put on there, that prohibition was put on there. So now I'm going to go over the 10 commandments, and this is Exodus chapter 20. So we can do the parallel, because this is Ahab. This is not Jezebel. Jezebel was just being his wife. He made the decision, not her. She gave him a suggestion, but it was ultimately his decision. And that's where I'm coming from with the human intelligence. When one falls under somebody else's human intelligence, and that's looking the person in the eyes, sometimes, a lot of times, a human can succumb to that other person's will. However, Jezebel and Ahab succumbed to each other's wills. Ahab came in pouting because he didn't get his way. Jezebel wanted to have her husband back because he wasn't eating or participating in the family. So Jezebel wanted to please her husband and went and got the vineyard. Enough said. And then her husband got punished. She was a part of her husband. So of course, it's the karma where they killed somebody. There was a man who was murdered over some land, and then God called judgment and said, this is what's going to happen to you. So now, the 10 Commandments. And God spake all these words. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the fourth generation of them that hate me, and shewing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of thy Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy servant, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. And all the people saw the thunderings and the lightnings and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye not sin not. And the people stood afar off, and Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, Thou shalt say unto children of Israel, Ye have seen that I have talked with you from heaven. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. An altar of the earth thou shalt make unto me, and thou shalt sacrifice therein thy burnt offerings and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and thine oxen, and all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee and bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hew stone, for if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. So, with that being said, we're going to go over, I read those 10 commandments. Based off the story that was just based off of 1 Kings chapter 21. How many commandments, what were the 10 commandments that Ahab broke? Number 1, he had other gods before God. That's the first sin. They had idols. They had statues that were representing other gods. So he even did the second commandment right there. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not bow thyself to them. Well, Ahab had it where he was trying to force the Israelites to bow down to Baal, which was a god that Jezebel worshipped. She was not an Israelite. She was from Phoenicia, so she was a Phoenician princess. And this is what happens when sometimes people marry outside of their marry a person that has different spiritual principles. This is where it starts to collide. So that's one thing for people to consider too when they do get married, to consider what that person's spiritual beliefs are. And take the Lord's name in vain. Well, Jezebel wrote a letter in Ahab's name, lying on the vineyard owner, saying that he cursed God. So there's one. And she was being greedy. And then it says here, thou shalt not kill. He murdered somebody for land. Thou shalt not commit adultery. He didn't do that one. That was one of the only things that he didn't. That was one of the commandments so far that he didn't do. And honor thy mother and thy father. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long. He technically did not honor his parents because the 10 commandments were passed down to him. Thou shalt not steal. He killed somebody and stole their land. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Ahab co-signed off of Jezebel's letter, lying on the vineyard owner to justify murdering him. And having days off, they didn't say anything about, but he had an altar for somebody else, and he made idol statues out of gold and silver, and he did nothing for God. So there was no Sabbath day, we can say, to be fair. In all fairness with the Bible, I did not see anything when I read the story in 1 Kings that Ahab even truly was following the 10 commandments. And this is the question that I'm posing to all of you, audience. Through that, it's in your mind, what is the true story? You see, a lie is 80% truth. So it could be one little word, one little section that's been overlooked or omitted, and then it looks like it's a truth. Or the person, it's just like telephone. When we spread rumors on somebody, we get the information from somebody, we pass the information down, and then by the time the last person gets the information, the message was totally distorted. So it's always be careful of be careful of what you're saying and how you're using somebody's name. regardless of whether the person is bad or not, that is still bearing false witness. Also, and we don't want, personally, I know I don't. Who wants to be lied on and have a story that's misconstruing and then it follows them even way after death, so many years after death? Ahab was never truly really punished. Jezebel was out there in the front, but the king ultimately makes the decision. And this is why when I say it's self-mastering, I highly recommend when you are, before anybody gets married or if they are in a marriage, get to know yourself better. Read everything. Don't look at videos. Don't Google. Read it for yourself to get the truth. Because then when you're hearing anything then you'll be a better listener, a better communicator when you're talking to people, because you know the truth, and then it will make you avoid any kind of gossip, because it's judge not or you will be judged. Judge not lest you will be judged. Like, it's what you put out there is what you get back. But the question in mind was, what do you think about the story of Jezebel and the story of her husband? What is the truth that will come out when you actually read the Bible? And it's in 1 Kings, the story of Jezebel. But the story that has been overlooked, from all of my studies, from all of the years that I've been studying the Bible and just living the Bible, no one has ever discussed chapter 21. When I say they overlooked, they would say, oh, Ahab coveted this person's vineyard, and this is what Jezebel said, and then everything became Jezebel. And I haven't heard, it's like, to me, it's all about fairness. If one does it, everybody should get punished. It shouldn't just be one person forefront. And so let's think about it, everybody. Let's get our brains going. And right now, I am going to give you a closing prayer to close out this meeting. And I really thank you for participating and being here. And we'll be doing more talks. Without further ado, our Father, we have received your message through mind, body, and spirit. As we close this meeting, we are walking our daily lives, feasting on your words. With deep gratitude, we thank you for your presence. In the name of the Lord, amen. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed one.